I think you can start.
Hello everyone. So now moving towards the last and the most awaited session for the day, I request Surjit ma'am to introduce the panelists for the panel discussion. Surjit ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Deep. Am I audible?
Yes ma'am.
Okay. Welcome back, friends, to our last session for this online national webinar. We have with us very eminent panelists, and they are our own alumni who are very active in different areas of research and mathematics, have a lot of exposure in India and abroad. And I'm sure that we are all going to benefit from their experiences and research journey. Our first panelist is Dr. Rekha Santanam, who has completed her PhD from University of Illinois. She has worked at Johns Hopkins University as a visiting assistant professor for a couple of years before joining IIT Kanpur as assistant professor. Currently, she is working as a faculty at IIT Bombay. Her areas of research are algebraic topology and topological combinatorics. Our second panelist is Dr. Anisa, who is currently serving as assistant professor in Department of Mathematics, ISER, Pune. She is also on our board of studies of our college as a subject expert. She has completed her PhD from University of Mumbai. She has worked as research associate at Quest India Private Limited, Mumbai. She was also a visiting scientist at the Abdus Salam International Center for Theoretical Physics, Italy. She was also a postdoctoral fellow at the Institute of Mathematical Sciences, Chennai, for a span of 2 years. She has also been a visiting fellow at TIFR Bombay for 2 years before joining ISER. Her research interests include space optimization problems, calculus of variations, and geometrical analysis, among several others. Both our panelists have several publications to their credit in reputed journals. On behalf of the organizing team, I welcome our panelists for today's session, and I also request our HOD, Rekha Vatpe Paradkar, to facilitate the session. Over to you, Rekha.
Thank you, Surji. So I also extend my welcome to both our panelists because it's nice to have them for SIES. And this is the most general session which will answer many doubts and queries of participants. So to begin with, I will start with Rekha Santanam. I will just ask you one question that you have worked in US for so many years. Okay, so can you tell briefly about your nature of work as well as certain questions pertaining to that? Means, for example, whether it was research related or whether it involved teaching, and also I want to know more from you about your postdoctoral research topic.
Um, okay, so thank you for this opportunity, and it's nice to be part of any activity being organized by SIES. I have very fond memories of the time I spent there. So, okay, I'm trying to think what is the best way to go around. So, what was the first question, if you don't mind
Okay,
asking me
no, no,
again?
I thought, I will ask you about your work experience in US.
Okay, so I joined Urbana Champaign as a graduate student, so for the PhD program. So one of the, I think, maybe quite a variation from other places between most US universities is when you start as a research scholar, you are hired as a teaching assistant. So not only are you supposed to take courses, work on your research problem, but you're also supposed to assist faculty in. Um, for instance, like for all the years that I was there, I got not only did I assist teacher like faculty in their like large classes, like if you have a class of 250, then we take the tutorial sessions, we do corrections. But I also got opportunity to teach some of the smaller classes on my own, which could be something like teaching mathematics to people who are non-math majors, but they have some math requirement and things like that. So that was one aspect which may be useful in case you're already teaching somewhere and you are also planning to do research on at the same time. Just to say that it is somewhat doable. Of course, the number of hours that we had to teach was much more limited because we were basically hired as graduate. I mean, we were mainly graduate students. After that, like, so in math, after PhD in US universities, you are usually hired as a visiting assistant professor. So you're expected to, so it's like a contractual assistant professor position. So you teach whatever is the teaching load for a regular teaching faculty in the department, and you're expected to do research. So during that time, okay, so in terms of research, so I suppose I should, so when I start, my PhD was in a subject, I mean, a broad area of something called algebraic topology, which I think is popularly known to people. I think the standard thing is that you're happy to understand spaces up to contractions and like continuous contractions or expansions. So I think the standard, I guess, something that you would see if you checked online is how a topologist would think of this cup and a torus as same, because you'll be able to like just crush all of this cup down, and then what you end up with a ring. You can never kind of get rid of this hole in the middle because this ring sort of stays. You cannot contract it without having to cut this out and then contract it continuously, all right? So that is roughly, I mean, there's this standard joke that for a algebraic topologist, there is no difference between a coffee cup and a, I guess, a donut or a medu vada, I guess, right? So in that, so that was my area of research. Basic, I mean, so in algebraic topology, you study space. In homotopy theory, you study spaces up to these kind of operations. And the main, very general problem to talk about is that you're trying to classify spaces up to this property. You'll say when two spaces are same up to being able to transform one to the other continuously, right? And it is called algebraic topology because you use tools from algebra to solve this problem. So for instance, you need to know things like groups, rings, which you can associate with spaces. And the idea is that if two spaces have different groups or different algebras associated to them, then these spaces are not same up to homotopy. So that is a broad perspective on the field I was working in. So during my postdoc, I continued work in this area, and as a visiting assistant professor, basically I got to interact with the faculty in Johns Hopkins and sort of talk about the kind of work they were doing. And one of the topics they were interested at that time there a lot was this idea of field of one element, okay, which conceptually doesn't, like, there is no such thing, but the idea of such a thing is useful to solve very broad problems, right? So that is rough idea of the kind of things I was into.
Yeah, thanks. So it gave some idea about you to other people. The question was only for that purpose. Anisa, I would also like you to tell something about your topic of interest. You have said that shape optimization problems and something else. So can you say a little bit about that so that people get some idea, and then we will start with our regular questions.
Sure, yeah. So so like Rekha said, it's always a pleasure to be associated with SIES College. And like her, I mean, when she mentioned that we have fond memories, I mean, those 5 years of life of SIES College just flashed in front of my eyes. And I really, really mean the words that I really have very fond memories of the college. And now, I mean, we had wonderful teachers, like most of them are still, I mean, present in this particular meeting, and it's really a pleasure to be talking to you and talking to the current students of SIES College. and current the new teachers, right, of SIS College. About shape optimization problem. So I mean, I always start with it's the description of this area of research. I mean, is just there in the word shape optimization problem. So it's like to find a shape that is optimal. So now we have to understand what do we mean by a shape and what do we mean by optimal. Okay, so shape, the kind of problems that I work on, a shape there means to find a domain or a geometry of a domain. Okay, among a collection of domains you find the best domain. And what do you mean by best? I mean, that is the optimal part of it. So to find an optimal domain, so optimal in what sense? So optimal in the sense that you have some cost functional associated to it with you, which you are planning to optimize. Okay, and optimize with some constraints that you have in mind. For example, it's like our, I mean, I always start with the same example because it is easy to understand. It's like our day to day purchase problem. Like if I want to buy a TV today, for example, then I will, so I will, of course, everyone, when you try to purchase something, you try to minimize the cost. But if I go to some say amazon.com or flipkart or snapdeal, and I just search for TV, and I sort them in the order of cost, in the ascending order, then I do have some cheapest TVs, right? And the cheapest could be like for 15,000, and there may be several TVs costing me the same price. But when I look at those TVs, these are not the TVs that I was looking for. So then what I do is I apply some filters. I do some advanced search. So I say I want a smart TV. I want like the display size, the diameter, the screen size should be at least this much. I have a preference on the brand, or say I want Alexa attached with it, or all those descriptions, high definition, etc., etc. I will have a list of specifications that I want the TV to come with, and then I sort them in the increasing order of the price, and then I look for the cheapest one, and then this is the minimizer. This is the cost minimizer that I was looking for. So here it is a day-to-day optimization problem where I had the cost, which was in this case the cost is the money that I'm going to spend, and the constraints were the list of specifications that I have in my mind. Okay, so then in shape optimization problem you have some admissible family of domains or admissible families of sets, or in it could be in a Euclidean plane, it could be in higher dimensional Euclidean plane, Rn, En, for example, or it could be on sphere, or it could be in a hyperbolic space, or it could be in some symmetric spaces, or any Riemannian manifold of having certain properties. So the ambient space is one condition where your domains are allowed to belong, and the domains themselves can have some additional properties. Like, for example, I can say collection of all the domains in the Euclidean plane having a fixed volume, having a fixed area. So then you can take ellipse having that say 100 square meter area, or a circle, or a square. So all these are my admissible families, and among this family of domains, my cost functional could be any geometric property. It could be the perimeter of the domain. So I might wish to minimize the perimeter of I might wish to find the domain having that fixed area, having the least perimeter. So this is one example. So most so this is like the classical isoperimetric problem, that among all the family of domains, piecewise smooth, simple, closed curves in the Euclidean plane, whatever that means, don't worry if you don't understand all these terms. So by simple, I mean it shouldn't self-intersect itself. So it should be homeomorphic to S1. So for example, figure 8 won't be allowed, but domains where the boundary is simple, and closed curve, because you want it to get enclosed in some curve, in bounded domain inside a curve. And piecewise smooth, you can have any other restriction if you want. You can have a polygonal boundary, or you can have a boundary having one fixed straight line or something like that. And then you decide the bag full of domains, and from this bag I want to pick the one which minimizes or which gives me the optimal value for my cost functional whatever that I have in my mind. So the classical isoperimetric problem says that among all the domains, piecewise smooth, simple closed curves in the Euclidean plane, the unique perimeter enclosing a fixed area A, capital A, which is fixed right in the beginning, the perimeter minimizer is a circle having that area. So this is like very classical problem, but of course there are variations, and isoperimetric problem exists and can be formulated in the you imagine a problem and you can pose an isoperimetric problem, and whether there will be a minimizer or not is can be questioned, and whether even if the minimizer exists, whether that minimizer will be unique or not is another question. I can go on this, but I don't want to do that. So yeah, we can move to next.
So still you said it in such a nice manner. I hope the students are enjoying that. So now, I had given you some idea regarding some questions also I had given, but what will you do? Will you answer on your own, or I should just ask you a question and on that you will answer? What sort of thing we should follow?
You can ask any of us. Can.
I think I will ask the question and then any one of you can answer, then, or if answers, you can share your experiences also on that, different experiences, because both of you are from different institutes. So I will just read the question. What are different universities offering PhD entrance exams? Means people want to apply for PhD. So that time, which are the different universities are available in India as well as abroad? Means what is the procedure? Means if there is entrance exam, and where will they get the information? This type of questions people are interested in, all these PG students especially, I think. So, and you may share your experience, both of you one by one. That will be better. And plus, what is the current trend? At your time, it may be different. Rekha's time, it might be different, isn't it? And Anisa, for you also now, many years have passed. So still you share your experience. That will be better.
Rekha and my time is not much. We are just 1 year apart, right, Rekha?
Okay.
Or 2-3 years.
So,
Okay.
so, but still you are from different, because she did abroad, you did at University of Mumbai. So it is good that your experiences are different. So you please share your experience first, and then audience can also ask later on their questions.
Okay, so one thing I was going to suggest, Anisa, so since we had discussed, I made a couple of slides about these entrance exams and things. And if you want, I can first share that, and then Anisa can add the things I have missed.
Yeah.
And also she can actually talk about the places in India based on her experience. Is that okay?
Yeah,
I've actually not
sure,
mentioned any of the
You
abroad
can
places.
share the screen also, Rekha, if you want to share
fine,
something.
Anisa? Like,
Yeah, Rekha, please. Yeah, that's fine.
So, and maybe then if you know some specialized fellowships, you can talk about that also. Okay, how do, 1 second.
Yeah, you go to that, that between mic and that E button, there is arrow, upward arrow. So you click on that and you will find the option. You can share.
So is this visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Yes, it is visible.
Okay, let me make this full screen. Okay. Yeah. What happened? Okay. All right. So basically, I just compiled a few things that I know, and of course, Anisa can add to it. So these are, so this is just based on what I know MSc students here apply to. So first I wanted to mention all the scholarship exams that are there. These are just fellowship exams. You write this exam, and if you clear the exam, or if you get appropriate rank, then you get a fellowship for 5 years once you actually get admission in a particular university. So these fellowships by themselves do not guarantee any admission into any university or a college or institute. Okay, so there is the CSIR net, which is the most popular, which most people would know about also, because this is, I think, useful also for lecturership, right? So, so you can get a junior research fellowship, and this is usually conducted twice a year. in June and December. In recent times, because of COVID, these dates may have changed, but typically it's in June and December. There is, of course, the GATE exam, which is conducted by IITs. This is usually held in February. There is the NBHM exam, which is held once a year. So the NBHM fellowship exam, which is usually held in January. Again, this has been delayed due to lockdown in the last couple of years. There is a new fellowship which is started by SERB called the PMRF Fellowship, which is the Prime Minister's Research Fellowship. This is only awarded if you, so this is awarded to students. I think you can apply if you're in the second year of your final year of your MSc, or you're in the first year of a PhD already. I think most people may be aware about the QIP program by the AICTE. If you're already teaching in a college, you can apply to these. So they give some AICTE funds, college teachers to go do a PhD in an institute. So you can apply through this, which is also held around in February. There is also the Inspire PhD Fellowship in DST, and roughly the dates are in March. Okay. Other than this, so these are scholarship exams. So these, if you clear these exams, once you get admission into, depending on the institute, an admission into that institute will give you fellowship through these agencies. Right. There are also some institutes which only admit students through their own entrance tests. For instance, there is TIFR in Bombay and Bangalore, which have a common entrance test. All the Indian statistical institutes, which are, I think I know 3 of them, but there may be more, I guess, like currently. But they're in Calcutta, Delhi. I don't know where the other, Bangalore, and then there are more ISIs, I think now. But they have a common PhD exams test, which is usually held in May. There is the Chennai Mathematical Institute, which also has a PhD admission test, only held in May every year. Okay. So apart from these, which are very specific, these particular institutes have their own exams. The other fellowships that I mentioned allow you to apply to large collection of institutes. Now, different institutes have different criteria about what scholarship you should have to apply there. There are the IITs, ICERs. I think both IITs and ICERs, you can apply if you have either the CSIR or the GATE or NBHM. Actually, they're open to, I think, all the fellowships as far as I know. There are, of course, the universities in Mumbai, Pune, and other universities. I just mentioned Mumbai, Pune because they're here. There is a recently, much newer institute in Bangalore called ICTS, which also has a PhD program in combination with TIFR Bangalore. There is IMSC in Chennai. There is HRI in Allahabad, IISc in Bangalore, NICER in Bhubaneswar, JNCSR in Bangalore, and all the central universities. Okay. This is apart from this, of course, there will be other options, but these are like some of the institutes that, for instance, I know of and can mention. Is there something you want to add to this, Anisa?
Yeah, so I just, so you were asking which other place is there ISI. So I know that there is one new ISI in Chennai, very close to IMSC. Right next to IMSC. Yeah, but your list is quite exhaustive, and I don't think I remember any other institute. There is this Center for Basic Science where also one can register for a PhD, right?
So that's in Mumbai. Yeah.
And some colleges, this maybe Rekha ma'am would know more about. Some colleges also offer PhD programs, if I'm not wrong. An Institute of Science in Bombay, the Fort University Center. That is also one thing. And so I think
maybe UCT also probably then, right? Does
Yeah,
UCT have?
ICT, UDCT it was called earlier. Now it is
Yeah.
called ICT. Yeah, in Vadala.
Yeah, I see.
And in addition to this, if you want to talk about across India, yeah, these are the most representative research institutes. But in addition to this, there are many, I mean, all state universities, there are central universities, and what else? There are NITs, BITS, etc., where one could go for a PhD program. I mean,
Yeah. Shall I stop sharing? Is that okay? Or
Yeah.
yeah.
You want to say elaborate further about this topic, or it's over?
I would like to add that I think Rekha already mentioned this. For example, this NBHM exam is also, like she said, this is not, once you clear this exam, that does not give you any guarantee of a PhD admission. But using this NBHM scores, many of the institutes and universities, it is like an entrance exam to those institutes. So using, for example, at ISER Pune, we look at one of the tests that we look at is NBHM score, and we shortlist candidates based on their NBHM score, and then we call them for interviews. So NBHM is like many institutes in India, is like an entrance test, in addition to it being giving you the scholarship research award that you are looking for.
Just check, there was one question in chat. The question I'm reading out: any permanent faculty member can apply for PhD full time in foreign or in India? Is it possible? That is the question.
Okay, I think this Nilesh Nalaude means that if you are a faculty member, you have some affiliation somewhere and you are a permanent faculty member, then can you apply for a PhD program? So as far as I know, there is this Faculty Improvement Program (FIP). That's I think offered by DST if I'm not wrong, and at Department of Science and Technology, wherein a faculty member in some college can get 2 years of a concession, like they get some kind of a leave to do a PhD, enroll for a PhD program in some university. And so it's like what I have seen while I was a PhD student, there used to be college teachers who were enrolled as a PhD student in the Department of Mathematics, University of Mumbai, and they were enrolled under this FIP program. So they start discussing their research problem. They approach a professor in some department where with whom they are planning to work in future. They start discussing some common topic of research interest, and then they let it progress for some time, and when they think now this particular problem needs full time attention, so this is like you have to plan it, because you get this concession that this leave only for 2 years, and not every research problem can be solved in 2 years time. So you can plan, you can start discussing, and the moment you feel that now you are ready to devote a full time attention to this research problem, but you have to apply for FIP because the processing will also take some time, and then those 2 years you can use to finish your wrap up, like completely solve the research problem, type your thesis, submit, get your publications like submitted and get it accepted, etc. Of course 2 years may not be enough, but you get it is, I think it's good enough that you have a permanent position and you have this option of doing this. And in addition to this, I mean, if you are not willing to take, or if you think you may not get, or if you applied and you did not get, that's not the end of your research dream. I think you can still look for some research institute or some university or some collaborator. Now we are all like very comfortable with this virtual mode of discussing, so even if you don't find anything in the same city or in the same state, look for some person who has the same research interest as yours, a mathematician or an expert, an experienced person, and write to that person and start discussing. And whenever you feel that now you can go and visit that person, you have reached a sufficient made sufficient progress in your problem, just take some short leave of 1 month. I think 30 days every employee, permanent employee, is entitled for. Take 30 days leaves, go visit, do this multiple times, and use your vacation time to like progress in the research problem. So if there is a will, there is a way, is what I would say. So it's not like you really have to be enrolled as a PhD student in order to do research. I mean, as somebody, as Jyotsna Prajapat very rightly pointed out, right? Ramanujan did not learn any research methodology formally. I mean, etc. So doing research is, there is no restriction. Okay, you can do it wherever you are. So if you are interested and if you have the drive and okay.
Yeah, very well answered. Anisa, I think he is satisfied also. It must have cleared the doubts in others' minds also. Now, someone was asking, and some participants had already asked in their forms that for internship, is there some internship or research assistant is available? According to me, such circulars I have seen in the past. Nowadays, I don't know much, but generally, such things I have also seen. They keep coming. One has to just keep the track, isn't it? That's what.
Yeah, so I think some of the research institutes have formal advertisements for every summer. Internships like HRI has a summer program, I think. There is a summer internship which is up, like funding is done by IISc. I think a lot of students apply for that. SURP, it is called SURP. Not SURP, sorry, it is called. I mean, I think, sorry, I forgot the exact full form. If I remember, I'll message it in the chat. But
It is available on internet. They can possibly search, isn't
in
it? See,
IISc. So
generally
you
for
can,
all these institutes on their website, they must be putting it up in case if there is research assistant.
yeah. Yeah, so it's
So
more about,
yeah, sorry to interrupt. Yeah, so I was saying maybe you are planning to say VSRP, Rekha. Is that what you are planning to say?
so there
No.
is VSRP, but recently students apply a lot for this. There is one, I think somehow, I think it's from IISc. They actually give you funding for the summer if you want to go intern somewhere. So it's again like a fellowship which you first get, and then you have to make use of the fellowship to actually go somewhere once you get. If some faculty or some institute is willing to let you do the internship in the summer, only then you get paid, I think, something like that.
Right.
So this is a summer research internship fund only. Other than that, I think the word internship, if you're not worried about getting funding and you just want to learn, there are a lot of faculty you can approach in different places who don't mind helping you learn a topic over the summer, as long as you don't need someone to pay for your accommodation and boarding. Anyway, right now, because of COVID, most places are very restrictive about whether you can go and stay there in the residential campus or not. So I think doing internships is not actually, it's more about approaching people and doing it seriously in that sense. So I think those opportunities are always there unless you're like specifically need funding to go to a particular city or something.
Now I think Anisa, this question you may be able to answer. You just look at that. Does the NBHM MSc Math exam provide admission to ISIS or any other institute to pursue MSc Math?
To pursue MSc Math. So ISAR Pune, for example, right now there is no such course as MSc in mathematics. We have integrated 5 years integrated BSMS program, dual degree. So you come after 12th standard and you are like you are enrolled here for 5 years, and you by the end of the 5 years, if you complete it successfully, then you get both BSc and MSc degree like BSMS. So it's an integrated program, but we are floating the idea of having just MSc course right now. So, so I am not pretty clear about whether this NBHM. I think I mean I don't see any reason why they would disregard NBHM exam as one of the mode of entrance. So I think NBHM will be one of the routes to enter the MSc program. So we are introducing this MSc program, just MSc program at ISERPUR.
I think, Anisa, currently you have integrated MSc PhD also, because
that is
one of the students is
yes.
doing.
Yes, it's an INT PhD program. So INT PhD that you come after your BSc, and I mean it's a 6 years program, and by the end of the 6 years, if you complete it successfully, you end up getting both MSc and PhD degree. So that INT PhD is there, PhD is there, and BSMS is there. So for INT PhD, definitely NBHM exam we are considering. It is one of the ways of uh, uh, entering the, I mean, getting shortlisted for the interviews. Definitely. Yes.
Are there any other ways of getting into integrated PhD?
So other exams that we consider, so we have our this strategy and the plan also changes. It has evolved over all these years. So there were times where we were conducting our own entrance exams, okay, and in addition to NBHM, and for I think your score, your JE is for PhD. In PhD there is no.
I think the JAM score is considered.
Jam.
IIT
Score
JAM.
IIT JAM is, but that's for the BSMS program. I think not for, is it? No, it's
No,
not
no,
for.
Jam is for MSc.
Oh,
There
JAM.
is a JAM for
JAM is
MSc.
for
Because
MSc because
IISc
With
uses
JE and
INT,
JAM. So JAM
INT,
is considered.
because IISc uses that for integrated MSc.
Right, right.
Yeah,
So
even
for
NITs use JAM score.
which institute?
NIT.
NIT. Okay. Yeah.
And
So
for instance, lot of I think IITs, like at least we have such a program, but we don't really take people for INT PhD. But what we do is like, if once you have an MSc student, they can apply in their third semester or something directly for PhD here and do the interview. And if they clear the interview, then they are considered a part of the integrated. So there is no separate admission thing. You have to get into the MSc program, and then if you do well here, then you get admitted to the PhD program. I think Kanpur has something similar. Maybe Chennai has something similar.
yeah,
now I
and
think
yeah,
yeah,
so I would
continue.
like to add in that in PhD, there are some institutes where you have this exit option. Like, see, if it's like not many students want to commit for that 6 years of after BSc 6 years of program. So what happens is after, so suppose they want to get an MSc degree and leave and maybe go and apply to some other institute for whichever reasons. Maybe they want to go abroad, or there is a change in their research interest and they want to work with some particular faculty elsewhere, etc. So we now have an exit option wherein, but you don't get your MSc degree in 2 years. Then you have to like fulfill this requirement of MS thesis. So you have to spend 3 years here. First 2 years for MSc coursework, and third year will be your MSc thesis. And then after successfully completing all the requirements, all the exams and the thesis fulfillment, you can get a master's degree, and you can apply if you want to just happy with that. I mean, that's fine. Or if you want to apply for PhD after getting the MSc from this integrated program, that is also possible. So I mean, what I'm trying to say is, of late, more and more institutes are open to this relaxation of this exit option. Even if the initial commitment was for 5 6 years, they do let the students choose if they want to go elsewhere. So
Yeah, now I think we will just take one last question for PhD because already many questions were answered in that earlier session also. So Shivek, if you have a different question, only then you can ask. You want to ask us first, and then I will come over to major and minor research.
I have a rather similar question from the previous one, so I would rather skip this one.
Yeah, because now I think it was answered that time. No? So if it is different, then you ask. Okay. So because we have to cover all our whatever avenues, whatever we have decided, So I will go to now major and minor research. So I just want to know, can you throw some light on major and minor research? What is the difference? Because see, everyone need not do PhD, isn't it? Because one has to do so many things. So please throw some light, on major and minor research. Any one of you can say.
Yeah. So we did discuss this yesterday, Rekha and I, like Rekha Santanam and I. Yeah. So Rekha, you want to say or what?
I'll just quickly say, so I went through the proposals that they had for, so honestly, I'm not very sure about what the term minor and major research means in this context, other than how UGC is granting its grants. But in general, I'm assuming that when you want to say minor research, you mean that you want to be active in research and you want to be able to publish something as something that you do on the side, apart from whatever teaching job you have. And I'm assuming by major, you probably mean that you want to actually get a PhD, or maybe you want to work at an institute where research and teaching are both are considered like equal components of your job. Is that a fair distinction?
I don't think so. These
Geeta ma'am
specific
will
terms,
say something. Geeta ma'am will say something about this major
yeah,
and minor research because it is based on grant, whatever you get.
yeah.
So
These
let us
terms are
say that,
used by
then I will
UGC.
ask another question.
Yes.
It is already there.
These
In it.
specific terms are used by UGC depending upon how much grant they give. So if they're giving, UGC accepts your research proposal and gives a grant less than 3 lakhs, the research proposal will be called as minor research proposal. And if you get a grant more than 3 lakhs, up to 10 lakhs, it's a major research proposal. So UGC differentiates only based upon how much grant they are giving. To some extent, even DBT funded projects, generally we call them as minor and major depending upon the grant given. And in the previous session, Jyotsna madam explained how to write a proposal, starting from the introduction and rationale and definition of your problem, everything. So process is same. When you apply to UGC for a major research grant or a minor research grant, you have to write a proposal following the same guidelines that were explained by Jyotsna ma'am, and you have to apply for funding. And generally UGC gives stress on collaborative research, interdisciplinary research, societal relevance. If it is there, UGC definitely likes it. So keeping in mind these 3 points, your proposal has to reflect that it is societally important. But major or minor research per se need not give rise to PhD. Rather, it is normally taken up by 2 or 3 teachers in conjugation, okay, who are working on similar problem. Like Rekha ma'am, if you remember, in our college, Madhavan and Aditya, they had taken up a project called Fold Scope, which was a science popularization project where they made a foldable microscope and they promoted it in villages because equipments are not really available in villages. So these 2 teachers from our college, they got good funding from DBT. It was a minor research project, and they developed a fold scope which would be folded. They would take it to different villages and teach the students to use it. So if you happen to visit SIS, you will definitely get a demo of that.
So then in that sense, I think like the word by itself, so honestly, in terms of grants, depending on what kind of research you want to do, the money can be like you may need a minor grant or a major grant depending on if you need equipment. If you're doing theoretical research, you don't actually need any, I mean, it probably works with a minor research grant. So in that sense, I guess the difference is about what is the scope of the research project you want to look. So I suppose the kind of scopes, if if it is social, I mean, it has a social aspect to it. You want to spread some, I mean, it is a outreach program in math or in sciences. Then for that you will need much more funding. If you are thinking about doing research in a theoretical sense, which doesn't need you to spend money on any equipment or in hiring any staff to do any data collection or things like that, then it will all come in the minor research project. So because I don't think any of these will have a salary component to it for the person who's doing the research. They are all supposed to be employed somewhere and then writing the grant, right?
No, for major research proposal, major research investigator can appoint some kind of help, research assistant. And then that is why the research proposal would have more grant, more budget, because a research assistant, you have to pay research assistant, right, in order to be able to help you. So we have a teacher from microbiology who has received a granting of 10 lakhs from UGC for her project, where she also had appointed a research assistant for a period of 2 years, and thus 10 lakhs covered the research assistant salary also, but not a teacher's salary. The teachers will not get anything for themselves. It will be purely for the purpose of funding research.
Is travel money not included? If
Yes,
that
travel money is included. You get various headings: equipment,
Yeah.
travel, stationery, books,
okay.
research assistance, and you have to justify why you require what you require and have to budget it. But normally the experiences you get half of what you ask for. So you have to be very judicious about what you will require and how much you will require.
See,
So
and
then it sounds like you would write this if you mostly like for the kind of research we are talking about, like if it is sort of publishing in math, like doing theoretical math, or like other than so then you would write
Very
for a
little
proposal.
funding. We will require
Yeah.
very little funding.
You probably need funding for travel if you want to go to conferences. So I would say that such a grant should be very useful if you want to keep updated on topics in your research area.
Yes.
You should allow for like travel expenses and maybe some basic equipment. I mean, you know, like a computer or something. But
Laptop, yes.
yeah. See, actually, they are giving, laptop and books also if you want to purchase. Nowadays, online books are available. But suppose you want to purchase some softwares, all these type of things, if you claim properly, you get that. In that minor research also you get, and definitely major research. Of course, we cannot compare our subject with other subjects because they require physical things. We don't require, but of course we require nowadays. Some tools are definitely required, laptop and all you can claim, but then it belongs to the college. You won't get it for your personal use. That is the condition behind it. So this is all regarding that major and minor research, but minor research generally gets completed fast because the scope is limited, and major means the grant is also more, and then that much also you should produce, isn't it? You can take duration also more, and you can have, but by that time people can continue and they may get PhD also. That major research, if they may convert it to PhD also. That is also possible. Generally, minor research will get over fast. That is the experience. Now, I saw some question here. So before that, I will initiate that. I had heard from you that there are projects given mainly, IIT to students, isn't it, Rekha? You had said that.
So I think even both IISER, Pune,
IISER
and
also, you
all
are
the
also giving.
others.
So both of you, you just tell us, that projects means what do you do, what you give them is in general, because nowadays in future in university and undergraduate also people want these type of things, that mini project or you give them some work. So we also want to have some idea from you, both of you, and then a related question also is there in the chat that I will read it.
Okay. I can just quickly say what I do, like because I've had a project student almost every year. Like these are usually MSc second years. So usual presumption is that I will give them something based on what they have learned in the first year in their MSc. But on the other hand, depending on their interest and what they have already learned, I will try to make sure that so this is usually a reading project. But the idea of the reading project is that at the end of the reading project, and depending on the subject, maybe in the middle of the reading project, they should know enough to start being able to read some research papers and being able to understand the research papers in that given field. So it is like a prep for research sort of a thing. Okay, and this of course varies depending on what topic they would like to learn. Like some topics are harder to get into because the amount of classical material which you have to study outside of regular lectures is much more, whereas in some other topics uh, that you may have already seen them in regular courses you have taken, so you can sort of start reading much more advanced topics. So this depends on the area a lot. So, but usually it is like usually you can give them some survey papers or some textbooks which are sort of a collection of topics which, I mean, some classical problems proved in recent times or in the last 50 years or something to get them into research.
So at ISER Pune, we also have reading projects like what Rekha has mentioned. So generally, so every semester a student, there are many courses are being offered like classroom courses, and in addition to that, so they have this requirement of like 24 credits per semester, and they can take the classroom courses, and in addition to the classroom courses, they can also take reading projects. Sometimes they take one reading project, two reading projects, or three reading projects a semester, but that's not a master's project. It's like during their first year BSc, second year BSc, third year BSc. And this reading project need not be if a student is planning to say major in maths or physics or it need not be in the same subject. It could be they might want to learn something briefly in bio or in arts, earth and climate science, etc., so that they can think of some, or it could be an interdisciplinary project. And it's generally one semester reading project, and we do try to get them started like what Rekha has, the same algorithm we also follow, depending upon what they have learned so far and their inclination and what they are ready for. We give them some initial starters kind of a project, and then slowly we get them into a habit of reading a research paper and how to understand a research paper, then go back to the references and read the referred cited papers and understand how. So reading a paper is also, it needs some preparation. So we train them to do this, and our fifth year is there are no coursework. It's a completely thesis year. So they are the entire year they are working on some like they plan the project and they work on that project. So depending upon their interest and whatever background they have collected in the last 4 years, preparing for the fifth year project, and they just learn those topics and they read some research papers, good research papers related to that topic. And sometimes, rare but it does happen, sometimes even write an original research paper by the time they finish their master's degree. And yeah, so and also in addition to this, we do have all these projects that we mentioned so far, both of us, are for our own students, right? But we do have opportunities for outsiders to come visit us and do a theory project, like a student, master students elsewhere, or a BSc student in some other university, some other state, can write to any of the faculty here and do a research. They can visit. Now because of the COVID, of course things are not as easy as they were, but they can write and they can come here and work with a faculty of their choice. There are summer projects, and the faculty who are willing to offer a summer project, they generally, their project proposal gets listed on our ISER Pune website, and students, they go through that list of projects being offered. And depending upon, this is like across all the disciplines of science and HSS, humanity and social science. And depending upon the interest, they can apply. And of course it is highly competitive. So if a particular faculty member is very much in demand, and of course he will have some constraint on the number of students that he can give time to. So if it is a very competitive this thing, like high in demand project, then very few limited number of students will get selected, but there is a possibility, and one can apply to like several institutes, so that their chances of getting into one of them is a good it increases. So one should do some research on this and apply accordingly.
See, regarding that reading project, that is a really a good idea. But I just want to ask you, how do you evaluate? Is there some evaluation there, or you just give them? Because if they are doing MSc or some course, is for other subjects there are exams, isn't it? Whatever work they are doing, so they are supposed to be evaluated. So what do you do for that?
The students who work with me, I ask them to give weekly presentations. So they are supposed to read something over the week and give 1 hour presentation. There is some fixed slot in the week, and in the presentation, I mean, if they did not understand, of course we will know, and you ask them questions, and that is like an evaluation. So it's a continuous evaluation like that, and they submit a very brief write up at the end of the semester about what they have learned during the semester. So this combined thing, and there can be a very final presentation at the end of the semester, just to give them a chance to improve their overall impression of during the semester. So just additional chance to them.
So yeah, I think pretty much what Anisa said. Lately, the only thing I've started doing as an extra thing is somewhere in the middle of the semester also I ask them to give a seminar on whatever they have read so far, because then it makes it easier to sort of um, make them give presentations on two topics rather than one thing, because in the end the presentation can only be 50 minutes, so they cannot really talk about everything they have learned. So but the main actually way to check is this weekly presentations, what Anisa mentioned, that they have to come and say what they have done every week.
So it was nice to share that with you. Now a question
Continuing,
related to
Rekha
that.
ma'am,
I'm just
can I?
reading
One
from
minute.
chat. One
Rekha?
minute. I'm reading one question from chat from Katyayani ma'am from Ratnam College. Apart from UGC minor and major research projects, can you please let us know some other agencies that fund in doing projects for college teachers? Means
So the one,
general
sorry.
projects.
Yeah, please go ahead, Rekha.
No, I was only going to mention that there are a lot of these DST young faculty grants or young scientist grants. I don't think they're specific, and there are also a lot of women scientist grants. So in that sense, there are a lot of options. Anisa, you want to add?
Yeah, so I was planning to present this slide. Yeah, so let me
Yeah,
just
yeah,
present.
please, you can share that. You can share your screen.
Yes. Is this visible? Let me know.
Yes, partly.
Yeah, I will scroll through it. So this was
Yeah.
during one of the conferences that we had organized here at ISER Pune. This was Young Women in Mathematics. This was in the year 2014. So I had just collected a few links of useful scholarships for students and teachers alike. So some of them are like not working anymore because maybe they are outdated, but there are a few which are working. So I would like you to, I can navigate through it, but I don't think we have enough time to navigate through each one of them. But something which I would maybe like to draw your attention to. So in addition to the government scholarships, there are also private scholarships like TCS research fellowship and this FAEA, which is like Foundation for Academic Excellence and Access. So, if you go through each one of them carefully, you will see that there are scholarships available for studies and projects in India and also abroad. And there is this India scholarships link, which I hope it is working. Yeah. So here there will be a list of many like undergraduate, masters, PhD, etc. Many different categories, and they keep updating it from time to time. So and you can just glance through them. I hope this particular window is also visible where I am this Nehru CSIR Nehru
Yeah,
Science
yeah,
Program.
yeah. Yeah, it's
So yeah, so I don't think we have time to like go line by line to each of these links, but I think particular where is that? Maybe I should go back to this. Yeah. So, like what Rekha said, so for women particularly, because this was a women conference, I had many links for women scientists in India. So this is the DST grant, I think, which Rekha also mentioned. So this is for women students also, and for there was this DST fellowship for uh, generally women are very likely to have this mid-career break because sometimes their personal life family becomes a priority in their trajectory, and they maybe take a break from their career and then they want to come back to academia. So these grants are for such women to support them financially till to like come back in be at par with whatever they have missed. To catch up with that, there is a supporting uh, scholarship funding so that they become at par with their peers, and then they are ready to apply for jobs or apply for a research position and get back into the academic programs of their whatever they wanted to. So there are such supporting scholarships for women, and UGC also has scholarships and fellowships. Then there are this international list of many different countries scholarships for young women. This link is not working anymore. I just went through this list, and there are this NBHM training program and NBHM research fellowships. So this let me just navigate you through at least this. So NBHM has been, I mean, my career in research is mostly supported by NBHM, and they have a very generous grant. There are special, so in addition to PhD programs and supporting masters and supporting postdocs and supporting participation in MTTS and even organizing MTTS, organizing ATM schools, undergraduate scholarships, master scholarship, and financial support to like set up a library or distributing books to students or in conferences or in summer schools, etc. Visiting professors, and if you want to organize a conference, you can approach NBHM. If you want to organize an instructional school, you can approach like research projects like the one which was asked. Like if you want to work on a research project, short term, long term, you can write to NBHM, apply for grants, and they will support you if your proposal is convincing enough. Postdoctoral, there are fellowships for teachers, travel grants to travel to collaborate with your any expert in your area, or to attend a conference, or to attend a summer school or a winter school, and short-term visits to the place your collaborator is working at, or some institutes like ICTP where there are many faculty, they come there, they work together for a few months, and then they go back to their respective institutes. So there are many such institutes like ICTP. Then there is Marcel, IPM in Marcel. Any other that you remember, Rekha? There is this Oberwatch or
Oberwolfach, yeah.
yeah, Oberwolfach. Yeah, in German.
MSRI also lets people write. So.
That's right, MSRI. That's right. Yeah, that's correct. And PhD scholarships and special programs, like if you want to go to ICM, for example, International Congress of Mathematicians, then you apply to NBHM. If your CV is strong enough and if you are lucky, you will get the grant. Visiting special centers. There are Ramanujan professorships. There are to attend panorama lectures or to organize panorama lectures. Sometimes, if you want to have publications and you need money to support your publications, so and or to organize events. So there are so many. I mean, both NGOs and government funding is available. And this is just I'm talking about the opportunities in India. Of course, there are this Indo-French. Funding is there. Then there is this, what is it called? The UK one. What is this scholarship for visiting UK that many of the Indians use? I forgot.
Fulbright. Yeah.
Fulbright is for, I think, like very coveted one, right? But there is there is some name like Indo-French is infra. There is some Indo-UK grant that one can apply to. Then there is Indo-Australia. So there are many such collaborations that exist. So if you want to, if you want to visit an expert in a particular country, You just write both these countries' name and the subjects. For example, if I want to go to France, then I will say India plus France plus mathematics, or maybe your particular area of research, PDE, for example. Just do some Google search, and it will, I mean, with some trial and error, it will lead you to the right link. So for Indo-French, for example, there is this infra. I forget this Indo UK, but it's okay. I mean, you will find it. It's not. It's a very well known kind of scholarship.
There are a lot
Okay,
of grants to Germany also,
that
similar, I think.
that's right. Yeah. So there are grants the in collaboration for Indian students available for many Indian countries, even to Australia.
Yeah, thank you, Anisa. And now someone had raised the hand. That person, the doubt is solved, or you want to ask related to this? Was there any question? Who had raised the hand?
Yeah, Geeta ma'am is asking, is it UKRI? No, I mean UKRI is not familiar to me. So it's just not coming right now.
And just to mention, I put in the link for the internships I mentioned. There are these summer internships from Indian Academy of Sciences. So that's through IISc. So I put the link in the chat, so anybody who's interested can take a look at them.
Yeah.
These are summer fellowships.
So now from my side, I want to touch the last part, that is based on some questions of students or possible whichever participants. Can a non-registered student publish a paper? So you just throw some light on writing paper also. I wanted to that
Yeah.
particular I wanted that idea also for students' sake. Means either a PG student or a undergraduate student, if he is interested in writing paper, is he allowed to?
So we also discussed, I mean, Rekha and I discussed this yesterday, and I did talk to an editor to a very respected journal, the very same question, I mean, to a colleague. And what he told me is like, so the question is whether you need to register for a PhD program in order to write a paper. And the answer is no. And it so happens that you need not even be affiliated to, I mean, maximum you need is affiliation to any institute as a student or as a faculty, as a teacher, as a research student, as a postdoc, or uh, any research associate. So affiliation is good enough for you to submit your manuscript to any of the journals where you wish to get your paper published. Okay. But now, even if you do not have any affiliation, of course, if you go to the official form of any journal where you submit your manuscript, it will not accept your application because most of the journals have a mandatory column of affiliation. You have to mention your affiliation, and that is the one of the bottlenecks. But what people do is, I mean, there is an experience and from the editor's side and also from the submitter sides, that if they write to the editors and if the editor is matured enough and understanding enough, they do let you submit the paper by sending them an email, or they somehow like get through this bottleneck of not making that field of affiliation mandatory, and you can still submit a paper and it gets refereed in with I mean, it does go through the usual process of getting it refereed, and it can get published in a journal. So, though I mean, don't get discouraged by you not being able to get through this process of filling up the form of that particular journal. So, you, even if you are in between jobs, or you have a break in your career, or even if you are a student, master student, or you are a teacher without a PhD degree, you can still submit research paper and you can get it published if it is if it meets the standard of the journal.
Now, from teacher's point of view, I just want to ask you, then what are index journals? And one has to publish the paper in that, then what will you suggest?
So you mean UGC indexed journal?
Because that's how the question was.
I mean, I think college teachers know this better than us. I mean, I don't understand
With
this concept.
ISBN number,
Yeah.
these things are there,
See,
obviously.
when I want to
Nowadays,
submit a
yeah.
paper, I generally look at where it will be more relevant to which journal it is like it meets the meets the requirement and the scope of the journal, and where I would where the audience, targeted audience whom I want this paper to get read by, will like it will be easily accessible to them. So and it should be a respected journal, of course. Everyone likes to publish in a good journal. That's what I look for. I never look for any indexing, and I don't understand how this indexing works. So of course there is something called MCQ. What is MCQ or what? Uh, uh, what is the term, Rekha? Do you know MCQ?
Citation, mathematical citation
What
record.
is
I
this
think like
what is
Citation index and ISBN.
citation.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it is MCQ. I think it is in MCQ. Like it is,
Okay,
that
it
is
is
the word.
MCQ, right? Yeah, yeah. So
Quotient, I think citation quotient it is. So,
yeah. So that number is like when you apply for promotions, etc. That number matters. So I mean, of course we do look at that number before we submit it there. I mean, or you have a general impression about some particular journal, and where you do, then you don't look for this MCQ, but you know that this journal is because if it is its reputation is good, then very likely it also has a good MCQ like that. So, but I don't really go get into that business of. I just, I mean, from the experience so far, I know which journal it is likely to get published and which is a respected journal, and where my target audience will find it easy to access. That's what I look for. But yeah, it's a very practical question, and I mean, we should not like lead in a like this delusioned ideal world of not caring about it. Yeah, so if Rekha knows a good answer to this, maybe yeah.
no, so I think that is not very hard to look up, right? If something is indexed or not.
Yeah, so very
But so.
No, but otherwise, what I will ask, I'll put it in that manner that which are the good journals, mathematics, because we are talking about mathematics journals. No? So,
So I think
which,
it varies a lot in the field. So depending
so
on your
one
field,
should
you
be
have
able
a.
to identify no, which are proper ones,
I think
reputed.
one way to look at it is that suppose you are doing research, you have probably read a bunch of papers in that area, right? So you can check where these papers are published. So you're reading a bunch of papers from some publication. So that publication gives you an idea, okay, these are the kind of papers which are getting published in these journals. So that gives you some idea of what journal you might be interested in. If you're, what you did is related to that, then you want to publish in a similar journal of that kind. Um, but this is, I think, like the thing is,
just
yeah, it's a
many.
subjective question. That's the
Exactly. And
problem.
even in a particular subject, there are just so many that it is difficult to list them in a right. The
Yeah.
number of good journals are also like a long list. But also
So then,
relevance, Rekha is suggesting relevance matters, right? So
Yeah, that is
yeah.
true.
And I think like there are two kinds of journals you can say. There is like, suppose you did something which is of interest in more than one field, or there are like sort of the big, I mean, there are the big journals which basically publish in all areas, any good result in all areas. And then there are journals which are specialized for a particular area. And I think one way to get a best gauge you can get is like you look around what you have been reading, what you're interested in, where that is published. I think that gives you a good gauge. You can always, of course, ask an expert in that particular area, where do you think my paper would fit, or like what is reasonable. But this is a very subjective opinion, so I think it varies a bit from person to person, like if you ask for a ranking or something. So
No, that is fine. That is fine. So we have touched all the aspects of research according to me, and all the questions I think we have covered from the chat. But still now, anything is remaining. What do you think, Anisa and Rekha? You please, uh,
from the
anything, means
questions,
whether you have prepared some slide you want to share or something. Because I have finished my questions, whatever I had to ask.
mhm.
Want to say something, what is remaining, you may say. And meanwhile, all the participants, I request that You can put your questions in the chat if you want any more questions, or you can directly unmute and ask general questions, whatever were not answered in earlier sessions, as this is the last session.
Till they ask any question, I have a question. So if we want to look at the recordings, I mean, of the talks that we missed, will that be some link available to us?
Yeah, it's available. We will send it to you. Yeah, no problem. It's recorded.
So I'll just quickly answer this one question in the chat, whether research assistantships, internships are offline. I think that is offline, online right now is very dependent on the place, and I don't know, like it is being varying. Only thing is, one advantage is now people may be agreeable to do things online, in the sense that they may be willing to have a remote discussion much more often than they used to before.
So, are there any questions from participants or any staff members or students? You please ask.
Hello, ma'am. I have one question regarding visit of IITs. Suppose our PG students want to visit IIT and want to know what IIT's mathematics departments are running and current research is going. So it is possible to visit, or is there any permission letter or anything else like that to meet your IIT Bombay?
So before, this was not an issue. Now, because of all the COVID restrictions, I'm not completely sure, but usually at the security, maybe you need some kind of an invitation or like something. So just because of current times, I'm not very sure. Otherwise, I know, for instance, like students from anywhere could come and sit in the central library, like they can read and they can visit. Like you just have to enter. I mean, at the entrance, you have to give your information and show your ID and things like that. So, for instance, the library was open to all students all the time before. Now, because of the lockdown restrictions, I'm not very sure about. But one way to make sure this is not an issue is write an email to the head saying, you want a permission for this many students to come visit.
I guess,
Okay. Thank you
Rekha,
so much.
the institution or the department where the student is studying, they can write to IIT or IISER and request for a study tour. That is a sure way of getting your students to visit these institutions.
So those things, yeah, the formal ones I'm not very aware of. Yeah, so they may have.
I think so. Now, I hope everyone is satisfied. There are no more questions. Looks like that. So, shall we wind up now, Geeta?
Yes.
And regarding that
Thank
last
you,
question,
ma'am.
someone is put, I will just say that about that. We have recorded all the videos. So definitely those who are interested, we will try to send you. Or we may take a decision whether to post it on our YouTube channel. We will just see. We have not yet decided, but we have the recordings. Yeah. Has someone raised that? Vijay Singh, please unmute yourself. And
Good afternoon, ma'am. Ma'am, I am in my third year of BSc Honors degree in maths, and I solved many mathematical problems from different topics like linear algebra, real analysis, group theory, to prepare for competitive exams. I want to know if I pursue my research career in future, will I be asked to solve those problems?
By what that?
I did not understand. So you have solved exercise problems like assignment problems is what you meant. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so that experience that it will be useful in your research career, because you have developed some skill, you have developed some problem solving, this thing. So it is an experience that will help you solve open problems, but exercise problems are not research problems. right? So they cannot get published. Is that your question? Are you asking about publication of solution of those problems?
No, ma'am,
Then what I
not
did not.
exactly.
Okay.
I solve math problems. I don't get, research papers to read, but I solve problems to prepare for competitive exams so that I can pursue my masters in creamed universities and institutes.
Okay.
So, no, like I practice daily. Is it helping me in my like? Will it help me
Of course
in
it
my
will.
research?
Of course. Yeah, that experience will definitely help you. If you can't solve, I would say maybe it may be wrong in some rare cases, but if you can't solve your assignment problems and exercise problems at this level, then it is unlikely that you will be able to solve like open problems, is what I feel. But of course, there could be exceptions. But this experience, I mean, definitely helps you understand the concept that you have learned formally and also apply them in solving. So it definitely like enhances your problem solving expertise, right? So it will definitely help.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mm.
May I say something, Rekha?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, it is with respect to the question on indexing that you asked. I think we have two speakers from completely different forum, IIT and IISER, and we are under UGC. So there are certain terms which are specific to UGC related colleges. So this index journals is something which UGC insists upon for teacher promotions. Like when teachers publish their research papers, UGC says that it has to be in an indexed journal and it has to have an impact factor. So ma'am's question was with reference to that. And I guess there are some standard indexing available like ISI, Thomson, Reuters indexing, Scopus, Google Scholar, PubMed, World of Science, so WOS. So I think that is what Rekha ma'am was referring to because for colleges under UGC, affiliated to UGC, uh, we have that indexing is very important to us. So just to add to the entire discussion.
Yeah, I was aware of that, but I am not aware of the list that UGC suggests. But yeah, but I think all the usual good impact factor journals will
Yes,
definitely be.
you will,
And
yes,
yeah, and
find them on Scopus.
my feeling is that the UGC insist on publications in these journals because otherwise, I mean, if they don't have any such requirement or any such criterion, one can get any like any very ordinary, I mean, result also they can get it published somewhere, and it may not carry that much of a value. So just to distinguish between good research results and ordinary ones, I think they are enforcing on this
That is right.
condition. Yeah, but it should not be very, very rigid. I mean, there should be some flexibility, but it's good to have a general guideline because then, I mean, we know that there are some paid journals when you where you pay and you can get anything can get published. So it's just to discourage such practice from becoming common. So that's what I feel. Okay.
I think we can close the session now, Geeta. You can
Yeah.
propose one more time.
Everybody is satisfied. We can move ahead. Yeah, so though we have slightly crossed the timeline, we didn't really feel it because of the interesting discussion and the very important guidance that we were getting through this discussion. So it is indeed a proud moment for us, teachers, to have our own past students as our panelists, or past students who have established themselves as researchers and educators in very reputed institutions like IIT Mumbai and IISER Pune. It was really great having you both here, Rekha and Anisa. I mean, I had decided that I will call you Dr. Rekha Santanam and Dr. Anisa, but somehow it does not come out that easily
Yeah,
because
I
for
was
me, you are
surprised
Rekha and
to see
Anisa.
that in the chat that Rekha ma'am, when you were referring to me as doctor. Yeah, so yeah, please that here.
Very strange for us also, I think.
Yeah.
So somehow that formality wouldn't come that easily. So I thank you very much for accepting our invitation and being present here today to guide our participants, which includes faculty all over India. Though the number is not very large, it is in 70s, but we have participation from various states of India, and naturally mathematics is a subject which is not as popular as some other science disciplines, but only interested participants are here, and I'm sure everybody has got good guidance through all the sessions. So I would like to thank Rekha and Anisa, and also head of the department, Rekha Vatve Paradkar, for successfully conducting this panel discussion and taking it in right direction so that everybody gets the answers to their questions. So a formal vote of thanks to both the panelists. Now, this is a formal vote of thanks for the entire session. So I must express my gratitude towards the principal of our college, Dr. Uma Shankar Maheshwari, who's not present today in this program. However, her constant encouragement has made us get into a national level webinar, which in the history of Maths Department of SIS is for the first time. Also, the RUSA, that is Rashtriya Uchatar Shiksha Abhiyan, through which our college has received a grant. Our college, being an autonomous college, has received grant under RUSA, and it is through that grant we have been able to make this program possible. I would also like to thank Dr. Satish Sarfare, who's our Vice Principal and Coordinator of RUSA for SIS, for the guidance and support that he has given us in arranging this program perfectly. I must thank SIS management for making this Teams platform available to us. It's invaluable. Without this platform, we wouldn't be meeting here in the online mode. So thank you very much to our management. A big thanks is due to our student volunteers, Deep and Alexander, for the technical support provided by them for the smooth conduct of this webinar. All the organizing committee members, thank you very much for being there all the time. And last but not the least, all the participants who've joined us from various parts of India. Thank you very much for being here and contributing by actively participating in the discussion. Not just SIA students, but I'm sure there are students from various other colleges and states. Thank you very much for being here and actively participating. So thanks again to all of you for making this webinar a grand success. I would now request everybody to switch on their cameras for a group photo, and also the feedback link will be posted in the chat box. I request everyone to submit the feedback, which is also your attendance, and you will get your certificate in your email after you submit your feedback form.
May I
Shall we
just-
have two, three, with
I
students,
think,
faculty
in large,
members?
I think in
do
large
we-
gallery, everybody will fit. We don't have that a big number right now.
Oh,
We can take up to 50. Let's
Yeah,
see.
while you take a screenshot, I would like to say one. I think it's a good opportunity for me to express this, and I really want to, since Rekha is also here. So I mean, you said that you are happy that we have reached this reputed institute, etc. But I would like to express that I mean, it's whatever you have taught us. I mean, we are taking it forward, and I really feel that sometimes when I'm teaching something, it comes back to my memory how when I saw it for the first time, how Rekha ma'am taught, proved that one plus any number, I mean, for example, 0 plus 1 is 1, 0 plus 5 is 5, 0 plus x is x, and how Geeta ma'am taught the sequences, convergence of sequences, limit, etc. So every time we teach or whenever we are like reading it or sometimes during our research also, there are such flashbacks that do come to my mind often. And since I see only the teachers, among my teachers, only you two. Of course, there are also glimpses of Asha ma'am, Maya ma'am in particular. It all comes back to me, and I'm really grateful, and I hope they keep coming back to me forever. I mean, in the rest of my life too, in my teaching.
Yeah, so I should also add that I think all the push you guys gave in the in college has been useful to make sure that one makes full effort, and I think that is something that I stand by still.
Our former head of the department,
Yeah, she's
Asha,
also here, I think.
is
Yeah,
also
she was
present.
attending.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much, Asha ma'am. She's been there right from the beginning till the end.
Oh,
And
And I think Subbalakshmi also wanted to attend. She told me and she remembered Rekha Santanam. I would like to convey that message and she recollected
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I
I
was.
remember all of
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, so I will
you
convey
yes.
whatever you said to her also. Possibly she's there in the seminar. I don't remember whether she joined, but she told me she will join.
actually, all cameras don't seem to be on. I can see hardly 14 or 15 here. Please switch on all your cameras, participants. I
Please
request
switch
you
on
to
your
switch on cameras.
video so that. All participants, please. All the students who are attending, you can switch on your video.
Yeah, we have a good number now.
Ma'am, do we take the picture now?
I guess so.
Okay. So for everyone, I'll just give a count to 3 so everyone can just smile. Be prepared, set yourself, whatever. On the count of 3, yep. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shall I post the feedback form link in the chat?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Bye, all of you.
Yeah,
Very
bye
happy
bye.
to see all of you.
Thank you very much and see you
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah,
In college.
I will. I will. Chalo. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay,
bye.
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 Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
I posted a screenshot in the chat. Anybody wants it?
Yeah, I have posted feedback form.
Okay. Rahul Deshmukh sir, welcome. I did not see you. Now I am seeing you. He is from
Participants.
Vidyard College. What is your name of the college? SRM.